The Armament Sanctum hummed with restrained power as I stood at its center, suspended between gravity anchors. Segments of adaptive combat armor floated around me like obedient moons waiting to fall into orbit. One by one, the plates locked into place with soft clicks that vibrated through my bones. The air was cold and sterile, carrying the faint taste of ionized metal. Behind me, I sensed her presence even before I heard her. The Empress of Aurelion stood silently, ancient and watchful, studying me with the kind of focus usually reserved for stars about to go supernova. Rulers did not attend arming ceremonies for frontline shock troops, unless something had already gone terribly wrong. I was just reaching back to secure the final spinal plate when her breath caught sharply. It was a small sound, but enough to freeze every muscle in my body, as if the armor's stasis field had activated too soon. "Stop," she said. Her voice wasn't commanding. It was shaken. Slowly, I turned my head and caught her reflection in the polished alloy hovering inches from my skin. Her eyes were wide and unguarded as she stared at my exposed back. There, etched into my flesh, was the birthmark, a ring of fractured star-shaped symbols surrounded by faint silver lines that had never faded, no matter how many scans or treatments I had endured. "Where did you get that sigil?" she asked quietly. I answered the same way I always had, with a shrug and a truth that had never satisfied anyone. "I was born with it, Majesty. The doctors said it was harmless." But she stepped closer, forgetting ceremony and rank, and whispered words I had only ever heard in bedtime stories told to frightened cadets. "That is the asterisk mark, the seal of the Starbound Sentinels." Despite myself, I laughed softly. Legends were safer than reality. "Those are fairy tales," I said. "Ancient heroes who vanished thousands of years ago." Instead of arguing, she raised her wrist and projected a holographic archive into the chamber. Ghostly warriors formed in blue light, each wearing armor disturbingly similar to the one assembling around me. And on every one of their backs was the same sigil. "They sealed the abyss during the first collapse," she said, her voice trembling. "And they were never seen again. We believed their bloodlines were extinct." Before I could respond, the Citadel's alarm screamed. The sound was bone deep, making the walls shudder as if reality itself were recoiling. The lights shifted to crimson as distant explosions rippled through the city's shield dome. "The abyss is opening," the Empress said, turning toward the blast shutters as if she could already see it. "And the mark has awakened." Suddenly, my back burned. Not pain, heat, pressure, recognition. The sigil blazed brightly enough to reflect off the armor plates as they began to reshape themselves without my command. Seams dissolved. New structures formed. Energy conduits ignited with patterns no modern engineer had ever designed. Then the memories came. They crashed into my mind like a tidal wave. Wars fought beneath alien suns. Battle lines held against impossible darkness. Names I didn't recognize yet somehow knew were mine. "You were never merely infantry," the Empress said softly through the neural link as the chamber doors unlocked. "You are the last sentinel." Something inside me clicked into place as the gates opened and the battlefield roared into view. Capital ships burned across the sky, their wreckage trailing fire through the clouds. Shadows poured upward from ruptures in the atmosphere like living ink. My armor pulsed with my heartbeat, less like a suit and more like a second skin. "Trust the mark," her voice echoed calmly. When the abyssal constructs surged toward me, sleek, lethal drones, my body moved before conscious thought. I raised my hands and raw light exploded outward, disintegrating them into vapor. I stared at my palms in shock. "You're remembering," the Empress said. "The Sentinels were not soldiers. They were failsafes." Then the ground ahead split open. Something enormous clawed its way through. A colossal mass of void matter whose presence bent gravity and crushed hope itself. Fear surged within me, but it was drowned by something older and stronger. The mark blazed brighter as visions sharpened in my mind. Sentinels standing shoulder to shoulder, choosing sacrifice over domination, hiding their legacy in bloodlines rather than crowns. I charged. The creature struck, but my armor formed a shield instinctively. Energy cascaded like liquid glass as I focused the will of the mark into a single thought and drove it forward. Light tore through darkness. The void screamed as the breach collapsed inward. And then, silence. Smoke drifted through the air. The sky slowly cleared. My lungs burned as I stood alone among the wreckage. "It's over," the Empress whispered in awe. "The cycle is complete." But I shook my head as the glow of the sigil began to fade. "No," I said quietly. It's only paused. I could still feel the abyss, wounded but alive, retreating, not dying. Later, when I returned to the Hall of Constellations, the Empress did not sit upon her throne. Instead, she descended the steps to meet me as an equal. The galaxy owes you its survival, she said. Name your reward. I thought about the echoes still ringing in my mind. The Sentinels had erased themselves from history on purpose. I don't want power, I said. Or titles. She studied me carefully. Then what do you want? The truth, I answered. And the freedom to choose. The archives revealed the final secret. The Sentinels had not vanished because they lost. They vanished because they feared winning too completely, feared becoming rulers instead of guardians. You were never meant to lead, she said softly. Only to watch. The mark dimmed as if it agreed. I'll leave, I told her. I'll go wherever the abyss stirs. No banners. No armies. She nodded in understanding. Then the legend ends, she said. And the Sentinel lives. As my ship slipped into the stars, the sigil faded from my skin. It was no longer a symbol meant for monuments, yet it remained within me. Not destiny, duty, because the galaxy would never know my name. And that was exactly how it had to be. Please follow my channel for more videos. One click from you can change my life.